everyone. I'm here at the cafe getting stuff ready for the day. One of the tasks that I need to do right now is getting soup ready, so I thought I would take this opportunity and teach you one of the soups that I do. Today we're going to do a split pea and ham soup. However, I don't have any split peas, so perfect challenge already for myself. What am I going to use instead? So we're actually going to be using lentils, which are a close relative and probably the closest substitute that you can get for split peas. And I am using a lovely canned item, which makes it all the more easier. This is going to go a lot quicker than a normal split pea and ham soup would. So I'm going to get started on a few different chopping techniques here, and then we're going to get our soup put together. So with that said, I want to make sure that you know as you go through these videos, I will post recipes, that's probably the more proper term. I will post some recipes for you. We will put those in the comments or in the description. I haven't quite figured that part out yet. But I want to let you know as well, any ingredients that you're using, try and get them all chopped ahead of time, and then that way it's just throwing everything in the pot. Makes life a whole lot easier for you. So we're going to get started on this. Alright, so everything is chopped and ready to go. You're not going to see my face for a little bit, but really the more important part right now is the pot that we are going to be building our soup in. The biggest thing with soups and sauces, try and use one pot and one pot only. This just helps to build the flavor significantly more than if you were using multiple different pots and pans. Plus, it makes dishes a whole lot easier for cleanup. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn on our heat. I'm using an induction burner, so this pot heats up significantly faster than your typical stove might. But we're going to add our oil right away, and then our onion and garlic that we had chopped up. Now keep in mind, I'm preparing soup for significantly more people than you might be at home. So my proportions that you are seeing visually are going to look different than what they are written in the recipe for you. If you want, you can by all means double, triple, quadruple the recipe. You can freeze it. It freezes really nicely. That's your call as to what you want to do. So we're going to do onions and garlic. We'll put those into the pot. I also chopped up some carrots earlier, so we're going to put those in. Split pea and ham soup, you can always add celery. In fact, it's probably encouraged. I do not have any celery at the moment. Again, this whole video challenge is meant to use what you have in your fridge and your pantry and your freezer so you don't have to go to the grocery store as often. Therefore, I didn't go to the grocery store and pick up celery to put into the soup. We're just going to give that a little bit of a stir. You can probably hear the sizzling a little bit. This is good. You want to be cooking your vegetables down a little bit. You don't want to brown them, but you want to cook them to the point that they're almost like the onion is a little bit translucent, so it changes the color. So essentially you're just sweating them. This is bringing out all the flavors, but it's not bringing any different color into the soup than what we're wanting. So a good way to tell whether this is done and ready is you're actually going to start to really smell that garlic and the onion. When you smell that, you're going to go based off of all your senses when you're cooking. So when you have that smell, when you see the change in the appearance, then you know you're ready for the next step. This is my favorite addition to pretty much all soups and sauces is wine. Feel free, take a little swig for yourself, throw some in as well. That's known as deglazing the pan. So basically any little bits and pieces that you might have stuck on the bottom of your pot, the wine, the acidity in it is going to help lift all that up and is again going to help build with the flavor and get everything off the bottom there. If you don't have wine, if you don't want to use wine, if you don't like wine, you don't need to use it. Another option would be any other sort of acidic product. Quite often suitable substitutes would be things like lemon juice, vinegar. If you're doing something tomato based, you can use tomatoes. All these things just help to lift all those good pieces off the bottom of our pot. So we're just going to let that reduce down a little bit. Now I had used a spiralized ham, which came with bone in, so I had made a stock earlier. We're going to put the bone in. If you have this, use it. It's going to help build that flavor. If you don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. This is just an extra little boost. So we've got that. I have my ham stock that I made from that ham bone. Again, if you do not have ham stock, don't panic. The next best substitute is going to be chicken stock. And even with chicken stock, if you don't have that, again, don't panic. There's always just water, and you can season it up as best you can. If you're going to be using water instead of stock, as you'll see, there's a little bit of ham left in there. If you're using water instead of stock, you really want to make sure you're putting all that celery, onion, carrot in there, because that's going to be what helps build your flavor up a little bit more. All right, so at this point we are going to add our lentils. Again, the traditional is that you're going to use a split yellow pea. As you're doing that, if you are using the dried peas, you're going to want to soak them a little bit, really rinse them off well, get rid of any of that like dust that is on there. Once you've done that, you can add them into your pot. With that, you're going to want to let it simmer, or bring it up to a boil rather, and then let it simmer for several hours. Those peas are going to take a long time to cook. We're using a canned lentil as a substitute right now. It's going to go significantly faster, and yeah, it's going to be a heck of a lot easier because all I had to do was open up a can. So we're going to put these in here. And don't worry, as we're simmering this, these lentils are going to become super smushy and soft. We don't need to worry about texture because we're going to blend this all when it's ready to go. So we're going to give that a quick stir, and we're going to let it simmer for probably about a half hour to 45 minutes just to really get that flavor built up in there. Again, if you are using a dried pea, you're going to be doing it for probably a couple of hours just to make sure that those peas get cooked off. So we're going to bring that up to a boil, and then we're going to let it simmer, and we'll come back and we'll finish it off. Alright, so this has been going here for a little bit now. I'm going to give it another quick stir. Now we're going to fish out our ham bone if you've used it. So I'm trying to make sure that you leave as many of the lentils and veggies. Careful, they can be a little slippery. All right, so we're going to turn our heat off. I'm just going to wipe this up because I made a bit of a mess here. So yeah, so we're going to turn our heat off, and we are now going to use an immersion blender. Oops, sorry about that. Which is one of these here. This I find is just the easiest way. You can do it right in the pot. If you have a scratch resistant pot, like with the coating on the inside, I would suggest maybe not using this and using a blender and just pouring a little bit in at a time and doing it that way instead. And that's mainly just because if you're using a metal tip immersion blender, then you don't want to scratch up that Teflon stuff. So we're going to blend this a little bit until it's smooth. Alright, so as you'll see, it's nice and smooth now at this point. There's still that little bit of texture, which is what you want. And you can see too, if you've ever had a split pea soup, that generally when you're using the yellow ones, it's going to have a little bit more of a vibrant yellow than this. Because we used a brown lentil, it's got a little bit of a different color, but still very close to what we're used to. Now, part of it for me is when we're finished at this point, I like to add my ham because I want there to be a little bit of texture. So what I've done is I've just cut up some ham into some fairly fine dices here, and we're just going to put that in, and we're going to turn our heat back on. I have a little bit more ham here, so we're going to put that in as well. Oops. And again, just give it a nice good stir. Now, one of the spices that I like to add to my split pea soup is actually a little bit of thyme. So we're going to do that. If you don't like thyme, you don't need to add it. That's just a personal preference on my part. Alright, and we're going to leave that. Again, we're going to bring it back up to the boil and let it simmer a little bit longer, and that's just going to help to reduce it down a little bit, make it slightly thicker. And again, just build all those new flavors that we just added with the actual pieces of ham and the thyme. So we're going to give that a few minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll finish it off. Alright, we're going to add a little bit of pepper to our soup here. I personally prefer a coarse ground black pepper. Again, use what you have. Don't feel that you need to go out and get something different than what you have in your kitchen. We're going to give that a stir. And then the most important part, I do everything based off of taste. And so it is always important to make sure that you taste your stuff before you serve it to your family. So they will love you all the more for it. We're going to taste it. The best way to do this, I find, is if you take 2 spoons, one of which grab a tablespoon, the other grab a teaspoon, so you have 2 different size spoons. Use your teaspoon as your tasting spoon, your tablespoon as your scooping spoon. So you're going to scoop, you're going to put on your tasting spoon without touching, because as this goes in your mouth, you might have to taste a couple times before you get the right seasonings done. So we're going to taste it. Tasting pretty good. However, it needs some salt. Depending on the style of ham that you use, some are going to be a little bit saltier than others. So always make sure that you taste before adding the salt, just to make sure, because again, ham has a decent amount of salt in it already. Again, my personal preference for salt is to actually use a kosher salt. Once again, if you have sea salt, if you have table salt, use what you have. Keeping in mind, you're going to see me probably put a little bit more salt in than you might. That is because kosher salt actually takes a little bit more to get that same flavor out. But I do find that it creates a bit more of a superior flavor. So again, just add a little bit at a time. Keep tasting until you feel like you need a little bit, or until it has enough. Salt is one of those things, you can always add more. You can't take it away, and that can sometimes ruin whatever it is that you're making. So always add a little bit, keep tasting until you feel that it's right. If the flavor seems slightly off, you can always add a little bit more pepper. You can always add a little bit of more thyme as well. Yeah, you're just going to keep seasoning until you reach the flavor that you want to have. And I think that's got it. So we're going to turn off our heat. As you can see here, this is our soup. Alright, so there we have it. Here's our bowl of soup that we finished. As you can see, the color's a little bit different than it would have been with using the lentils. But it is what it is. As long as it tastes what it's supposed to taste like, then we're good. So you can do the garnish if you really want. You can put something like croutons on top, just dresses it up a little bit. Or you can use plain soda crackers, again, whatever you have. The other options, you can add a little bit of heavy cream in there, or table cream, 10% cream, whatever you have. That adds a little bit more creaminess to it as well. So we're just going to do that, just so you can see. You've got soup, you've got lunch, you've got dinner, you fed your family using what you have in your fridge. Well done.